So similar case, Johnny, you want to repeat yours as well, but to quickly show you something similar, how agents are improving upon themselves, and how they're apparently getting smarter with every iteration where we ask them to approve on the process. And this is what I've been doing for the last 4 days, day and night, just approving upon the process. So what we did, translation memory, first was in Excel, now it's a big database, 75,000 rows. And I gave it a first shot at a tool. Tool worked great. It creates a sandbox, it creates a database, it could filter for the right sequencing and the right results, order the right results, do all of that. But then it said like, yeah, it's so slow because you're firing off 10,000 SQL queries with this, because you're currently your query strategy is suboptimal. And also, by the way, and this is where I wanted to share my screen, and also, by the way that you're doing it is actually it's a really bad algorithm that you're using there, right? So you're using the Jarrow-Winkler algorithm, but let me tell you, I've been researching without me asking it. I've been researching on the internet how industry standard leading tools are doing it, right? And I can tell you now that the similarity score of the segment matching that you want to do to tell you if something is already in the translation memory and you should be used or not, we're going to use a way better one. It's called the word Levenstein, right? Which is way more realistic. It's used by the big ones. It's used by STL, Trados, MemQ, Wordfast. And let me introduce that to you. So next step was it built that out. After it did that, it said like, your queries are still very inefficient. Let me transform all of that into a new approach where I'm doing the entire matching piece. I will do one query or two queries only, but the entire matching logic I'm going to do in memory. And it wrote the Python for that, self-improving upon it. Then the next step was, okay, now I tried to do it as a tool, right? And trying to bring it forth and back. And I thought like, okay, it needs a little bit help. So I came up with a new logic, right? How we're working with a sandbox. And there's certain limitations still when you have like a bi-directional exchange between the sandbox and the agent. Because, for example, you don't want the entire Python script to be part of your prompt.
Mhm.
That goes into the context window every single time. That's just stupid. So how do I do that? It told me exactly how to move an artifact, a Python code artifact from a Vertesia object into the sandbox. Then it's going to execute against that, do all the ranking inside the sandbox, do it, all of this in memory, create an output file, which again, the agent will be notified about, picking it up, translating only what's necessary, bringing it back into the sandbox, and the sandbox assembles the final JSON file. Boom, there you go. And this is just something over the iteration of 2, 3 days. The agent, similar to your case, iterating upon itself. I think I'm at prompt version 45 now, but it has gotten so much more sophisticated and so much more robust as well. And this is something where, to your point earlier, yeah, maybe I would have gotten there after 2 weeks, right? But just the agent sort of figuring out the problem is, and also the way that I created this, because I used Assistant. I gave it the previous prompt. I said, okay, here's the problem from the log. Tell me what the problem was. Here's the existing prompt. Fix the problem by updating the prompt and iterating on that times and again. And then being able to also test the prompt inside Assistant without having to replace it in the interaction. I could run the queries. I could spawn another sandbox environment from within Assistant, testing the new prompt it just generated. So it's a constant iteration upon itself. And you are just really the guardian who still has to think a lot. I mean, I came up with this one here and it said like, yep, that's definitely improvement. Let's do it like that. But it's yeah, it's and you mentioned you have something similar?
Yeah, so I can't show anything because it's got client information all over it, but
Sure.
I can kind of talk through it. So basically it's a company that does accounting audits and they have kind of a barrage of tests they want to run every general ledger through. So they get these general ledger documents. They're massive tab delimited files typically and millions of rows. And they currently don't really have a great way to analyze them for fraud. So they have a machine learning software they use,
Hmm.
but that doesn't really, it's a black box. It doesn't give them anything, like it doesn't output anything really that useful for them that they can kind of then dig in manually.
Hmm.
So they want us to run each general ledger through these 27 different tests, things like, are there any
Wow.
statistical anomalies?
Yeah.
Something called Benford's law that has to do with like account numbers and numbers in general of like patterns and distribution of what number should be first, etc. So there's a lot of different tests. And again, I was looking at this and it just kind of seemed overwhelming.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, there's 27 tests. I maybe know what, like, I may be familiar with like seven of them. The rest of them, like, I've never even heard of. Um, and so, kind of starting from this place of like just being overwhelmed, I gave all the information I had to an agent and I told it what I wanted it to do. Uh, and it kind of came back with a plan. And then I basically asked it to go through multiple iterations of thinking through the problem and make it
Hmm.
as efficient as possible, knowing everything
Iterating upon itself.
that I had given it. So it did like a first iteration, and then it was really interesting to see because it basically did, I think what humans do, which is they like when I'm thinking through a problem, I'll kind of like come up with a solution that I think might work, and then I'll look at that solution and I'll kind of do like,
Yep.
problems, pros, cons, like break it down
Rating.
and then do another iteration. And so that was kind of what it did naturally was it came up with a solution and then it said, let me identify some problems with this solution. And then identified problems and it said, okay, how can I fix those? And then it iterated
Yep.
and then it did the same thing
Yep.
again. So it was really, really cool to see. And what it came up with was this really, really elegant solution of basically understanding and identifying that the main area of variability was going to be the column names and the
Hmm.
columns that were given in this general ledger. But it
Hmm.
recognized that all those should have the same, like they're all going to have debits, they're all going to have credits, they're all going to have account
Yep.
numbers. So it basically created a standardized way to use AI up front to get it into this standardized template.
Oh, so data pre-processing.
Yep. And then and again, it's not that I wouldn't have gotten there. It's just that it came up with the solution really, really quickly.
Yep.
And it mapped
That's
everything out.
amazing.
And so it was
That's amazing.
yeah, and the interesting thing is now the efficiency that we're going to gain is going to be all because everything's standardized and everything. Now the code can run the same against
Yeah.
every single general ledger, and the only variability is the very beginning. And so that's where we're using AI to map it essentially
Yeah.
and make it all standardized. But then after that, everything's the same. And so it's going to be a really efficient process once we build it out
And
because,
it came up with the efficiency part of it. You didn't tell it to do the efficiency. You just said, find out what's the best way to do this and
yep,
improve upon yourself." And that's kind of similar to what I had shown, right? Just said like improve upon yourself, and suddenly it comes up with new solutions. It says like,
yeah.
let me test it out. By the way, I did some research. This is the way to do it. Let me implement it. Let me test it. Let me adjust it to your use case at hand. And to your point at the beginning, it's like this is getting really smart.
What
Um,
it's what I think is so interesting is these models have such a kind of a broad knowledge to begin with. And
hmm,
so they need the additional context to help me with my specific problem, but they
yeah,
understand general ledgers probably better than I do.
yeah,
They understand statistics better than I do. Like I said, I
yep.
was familiar with maybe
Oh,
seven of these things,
hmm.
but I think just the ability to kind of have this intelligent agent
It has
that
a
is
PhD in statistics, man.
exactly that
Hmm.
can help me with this stuff. Because again, the first thing I would have done is, okay, let me go through and let me learn what all of these
Yes.
actually are so I
What does
understand
this
what I'm
even
working with.
mean?
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect, Johnny. Yeah. Um, Another case for another client I'm currently working on. Client says like, "Oh, you already created this report for us. The team that's working with it, they're super happy, but we have another team, they have a similar report." But it's huge data sets from media, from all sorts of social media report data, but also creative assets, and it's a mix of everything, right? But they want kind of a similar support report. And here's what we think it might be looking like, but we don't really know, but we really like what we did for the others. Like, so what does that mean? How can we get this started? Like, and again, then the question, like, what are the low-hanging fruits? And of course, this can become a massive project in itself, right? So I took these 20 documents we got from them, PowerPoints, Excels, whatever, right? I threw them all at our Vertesia assistant, right? And I gave it a brief of saying, like, look, here's an existing agent that we already have created for our team. It's creating a certain type of report. And here's another brief by another client team. They want something similar, explaining the situation like I would explain it to you when we both start working on it. And then typically we would have maybe divide and conquer it, right? Like you take all the Excels, I take all the words, and we try to make sense of it. And like, oh, how can we build like this and so on? So within half an hour, I got a full plan about the development effort, about the solution strategy, about why we can build upon the one versus the other, and how to do all of this with existing specific Vertesia platform features. Because a little advantage here, I used our agentic content pipeline that we're building, right?
Yep.
Which knows very, very much detailed GitHub level detail about the Vertesia platform itself. So it's a solution architect technically. And it came up with a plan and an effort level. So now we go internally into our internal meeting, already having a plan, an idea with the top 15 questions, how to move it forward, where to make the emphasis, and already like a high level architectural idea where to even begin with this and how to build it out. And again, to your point, something that would have taken us at least a few days to even get to the starting point.
Yeah. Yeah. And now it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, but a big part of the job now working with these AI agents is communicating what they're doing to the client.
Yes. And breaking it down into consumable packages, right? Because the
Yep.
outputs are massive. I mean, such a strategic approach document can easily have 50 pages, right? And there's so many tidbits in there, there's so much valuable information in there, but there's no way you communicate to the client. Sequencing becomes super important, right? So how do we take things apart? So the human element in all of this is still what is in the driver's seat, because the engine just creates, right?
Yep.
You need to decide what's valuable in this and how do we structure it.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I think is really interesting. I think the human element is um it's something I think about a lot of like how does
Mhm.
my life change or how does my job change
Mhm.
as I do this? And
Mhm.
it just becomes more of an orchestrator and kind of uh
Yeah,
big picture thinking.
yeah.
It seems like I'm kind of moving more like higher up and higher, like to higher and higher levels of
The
thinking.
abstraction level
Yep.
is rising, right? I read certain interviews with developers, right, who open up Claude in the morning. They say, "Here's my ticket, here's my task, work it off," and they get less and less time, right? Because they're just like prompt dumpers, right? Okay, fix this, fix that. They don't even have the time anymore to control what they're doing, right? And this
Hmm.
is where when you only rely on it, you feel like a prompt pusher, right? I think there's a certain balance, but maybe because of the nature of what we do at Vertesia, maybe because of the way that we have strategic business thinking, and not just, hey, this is great tech, but we understand how we use great tech to transform that into an applicability to business use cases, right? Or rather the other way around, right? Yeah, that makes it super interesting.
Yeah, and I think another thing that's kind of blowing my mind is if you think about the two use cases we've talked about, they're very, very different. One
Yeah.
is translation, which is purely language. The other one is accounting and coding, which
Mhm.
is purely numbers. Um, and so I think just kind of the breadth of how much these models and these agents are able to do is it's pretty eye-opening. And again, it's moving very fast. I've been at Vertesia less than a year, and it's already grown leaps and bounds.
Yes. Every week I feel like my learning capacity is just not maxed out, but every week I'm learning more,
Yeah,
right? I
agreed.
don't I don't feel like AI is removing or replacing me or I'm working on my own replacement. No, no, nothing whatsoever. I feel like that now AI really becomes a third arm that I have, or maybe a third, fourth, and fifth arm, right? Um, because it takes the thinking. It takes the thinking and the idea and the understanding that's still there, right? I can just do it way faster than I was able to do it before.
Yeah, I almost think it turns every single person into like a team of people
Hmm.
because it's not just me doing the work anymore. It's me being, a manager of a team
Right.
that's doing this work. At
You
least
brought it up
that's,
last time. Think
yep.
about this scenario. Like you're an engineer, I'm also tech background, but I'm not a developer, right? I'm an architect. So I do things more on the abstraction level of diagrams and I understand
Mhm.
how systems relate to each other and all that stuff. But I'm technically not a developer, right? So in order to get something done, I would have had to talk to our colleagues, find time with them, brief them, right? Be able to talk to them, lost in translation, multiple languages that were speaking on the team, right? So and then constant check-ins with them, just like the amount, not calling it friction, but the amount of administrational overhead just to communicate with the other team members. Where now it's like your brain and your thoughts directly to action. And
Mhm.
and and the flip side is you immediately see the result of your actions, which sometimes are totally not right. But then the agent kicks in, and this is the difference to just a GPT which you have a conversation with. Now the agent kicks in and makes recommendations on how to improve on the process that you and the agent have been working on so far. And it's not just like giving you a here's text back. It starts building itself. It starts
Yeah.
putting it into the testing environment in the conversation that you're having. It starts testing itself in the conversation against live data or against internet data, whatever the case is. And I don't know about any other platform but Vertesia that is working at that level of abstraction.
I was just gonna say that, Steph, is I think the one, well, a lot of things Vertesia has going for it, but I think the thing that I'm seeing that's really kind of allowing us to pull away and build really, really powerful use cases really quickly is the system's ability to be introspective.
Mhm.
So talking
Mhm.
about
Yep.
improving the prompt, right? That's because it can see its inner workings almost.
Yep.
It can see the prompt that it was given, the content pipeline project that you built. Now it can see, right, uh, not necessarily code, but it can see all the features, right? And it can understand the environment it's working in, which
Yes.
is itself. And so
Yep.
I've seen that be really, really valuable in improving these agents and any process really because it can not just look at itself, but it can look at other agents in the system. So you could say, hey,
Yep.
I ran three different agents, I ran three different tests. They all output 50-page documents. I am not able to, as a single person, go through and actually, judge which ones are better. But an
Yep.
agent can do that no problem. And so it can
And
actually
the
go and it can
agent,
look,
and
yep,
Johnny, the agent would automatically pull up one of the standard tools of the teacher platform, which is the council, I think we call it, right?
yep,
The council of three, which is like synthetically creating different personas with different points of views in order to assess and vet whatever the topic, right? And the
yeah.
topic might be code, the topic might be a financial statement, the topic might be a translation, right? But that's an essential feature of the Vertesia platform. It can create its own tools, and this is not just like calling an MCP, like, oh yeah, I can read Salesforce now, great, amazing. That's just tapping into the raw data. It's how you apply the knowledge, how to use that data, and combine it with other tools. And this is again something I've seen no other tool ever doing that so far.
I have not. I also haven't seen anything that is as resilient as our platform in terms of agents uh running forever.
Yeah.
They almost run too long. Like I ran an agent and I came back and I realized it was still running like hours
Uh-huh.
later and it was still working through the problem and it ultimately figured it out, but it went through hundreds of iterations of trying different things and not just randomly trying things, but trying them, reading the error,
Systematically,
yep,
how do you call
adjusting.
it? Deduction, right? Sherlock Holmes. If it's not that, then it's that.
Yep. Yep, I think it's a deduction. That's always
Deduction.
deduction and induction has always confused me, but I think you're
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty wild. And then I think the ability for our agents to spawn other agents when they need to help with tasks is also something that's just absolutely insane, especially since they can now see it's not just one agent spawns another agent, and then those agents are now separate agents. It's this one manager
Oh
agent
yeah.
that is
Yeah.
looking at, oh,
And
I've spawned
they
five
share one
different
repository of
workers.
knowledge.
Yep, and it can check in on it. So I have
Yeah.
agents that are running, and they'll say, "It's been 5 minutes. Let me check in and see what this agent's doing," and it can
Yeah.
see what it's working on, and it says, "Oh, you
And that's
know,
an interesting one. So
it's
when
yeah,
we go through these logs, right, you will start seeing like, yeah, I gave it a time limit. So it's at 55, 60, 90% of the time limit. Let me check in on it. Actually, I see it's making good progress. I give it 5 more minutes,
yep,
right?
yep."
It's a
Which is
decision. You didn't tell it you. It's
yeah,
making that because it sees there's progress. Why would I stop it now? Let it give it some more time, but 5 minutes is more than enough,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Another thing I'm really liking is our ability now to um, send prompts while the agent's working. So you can
Yeah.
send prompts. So yesterday I had it trying to load 1 million records at a time to a database. And I thought that might be too many, but I was like, let's just try it. And so I
Hmm.
tried it and I saw it kept running into timeout errors. And so instead of having what I normally would have had to do is stop the agent and then
Yeah.
start all over.
Yeah.
Instead, what I did was I just said, hey, instead of 1 million, try 500,000, hit
Yeah.
enter, and that went into the system's memory. And all of a sudden it's trying 500,000 and it succeeded. So it's,
And yes.
yeah,
And the intelligent management also of the context window, right? Everyone's talking about context window. Gemini has like 1 million tokens, whatever. But of course, the more you ingest it, the more expensive it gets, right? So token caching is a huge thing that Vertesia now has. That's amazing. The other thing is, of course, the bigger your context window, the longer the response times by the foundational models coming back to you, solving a problem, especially when it's complexities. And also the context creep, right? It's like so much information there doesn't have to be. So Vertesia is an intelligent way to manage that content and also to create checkpoints at certain points, right? So when it's hitting a certain limit, a certain threshold, we will create like a context summary that the model can still tap into. I mean, probably you've seen that on Instagram, LinkedIn, everyone's celebrating like, yeah, we have smart context management now. Yeah, sure. How else would you do it, right? Um, but this is really something where you see that you can have longer and longer work streams. It's not just like a one, two-step conversation, but also the ability for the agent to spawn a sandbox. And the sandbox is executing code that is not part of the context window necessarily, right? For example, importing 1 million entries into a database. That's not the LLM importing every single thing. It
no,
intelligently created by itself a Python script that will import your Excel basis, I guess, CSV, whatever, and then do it programmatically from a Python sandbox environment against the database that's in the project. But
that
the
was something
LLM
that
is
was really,
just controlling that, right?
yeah, that's something that's really interesting. I'm glad you brought up because it was something that I kind of had my assumptions, but I wasn't sure what was going to happen to the context window when I was importing all this data. Because again, I'm thinking, okay, 1 million records. I'm like, that's a lot of tokens. But then I thought, well, I don't think it has to read all of them, right? And so
Yeah,
when I ran it, my assumption that it's not going to have to read everything was correct. And basically, the only tokens it used was to basically write the code. I mean, there was more reasoning and stuff that it did as well, but
yeah,
it was a factor of 10, way more than a factor of 10 less than I thought it was going to be in terms of token usage, just
yeah,
because it was writing code and it was executing the code, but it
yeah.
wasn't having to read, 1 million records of data. And so it's actually
Right.
a really, really efficient way to do some of this ETL work that I've done in the past.
Yeah.
And I,
Efficient and
yeah,
also very well aware of cost, right? So, I mean, look, when we do testings, we easily create like 50 million tokens
yeah,
in one test for one thing, right? That's a lot of tokens, right? So, of course, Vertesia now has ways to show that and give you like the statistics and all of that, but also the smart token management. This is really, I think, where it makes a difference to other tools that maybe give you only a counter, right? Um, yeah, it's very impressive. Johnny, you and I, when we came on today, we both said like, "Hey, let's postpone this," and we just jumped into it. And I think this is our best format, where it's just like, "Hey, wait," and we just both start getting excited, and then this exchange, as the one we just had, just happens. I think this was a great one. I think this is our our current episode. Maybe if you could send me some screenshots of something, of course, anonymized. I'm going to do the
Yep.
same. I'm going to put them in a little bit overlay. And yeah, in retrospect, hello, everybody, and goodbye to our third
Goodbye.
episode of Pass the Pilot with Johnny McFadden and myself, Stefan. Thank you very much for being our guest today.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.